On Monday, June 17th, I received the news that Crystal Cauley from Hendersonville, North Carolina, had passed away. I was shocked. And my plan this week, during the celebration of Juneteenth, was to be able to maybe spend another day in Western North Carolina. I had plans to go up to Silva and possibly spend the night in Hendersonville to meet her for the first time. We'd had several conversations, but I had never met Crystal. So, in honor of her legacy, BLAC has decided to rebroadcast the interview that I had with her last year. It really does capture the importance that she had, the power, the passion that she had for her community and her work. And we at BLAC wanted to make it clear that she didn't just touch the community that she lived in Hendersonville. She didn't just touch Western North Carolina, that she had an incredible impact on the region. As an example of the many people who work quietly and maybe not so quietly, but in a dedicated fashion, sometimes later in life, sometimes they're compelled to do the work after there's a controversy and they step into the role of leader. And that's what she did. There's a living legacy for Crystal's work, and we're sharing her story with you. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to the Black Appalachian Coalition's podcast entitled Black Remembering, where we will bring to you the heavy and the hope across the Ohio River Valley. We want to remember who we are, where we've come from. We want to speak to the oral history of what we've done, what we've achieved. We want to speak to the ills that we have experienced, while also finding solutions to those problems, those issues. We want to deal with the narrative that has kept us deeply rooted in despair. Now we want to punch through that narrative and stand up and say, we are remembering our Black past, and we are rooted, and we are here to stay. Welcome to Black Remembering. We hope that you find your place, your space, and your voice in this podcast.
Hello, in this episode, this is Marie Cochran bringing you greetings from North Georgia, and I am with BLAC, the Black Appalachian Coalition podcast, bringing you the heavy and the hope. And this time we're speaking with Crystal Cauley. And I love these conversations when I meet someone that I know through social media. So Crystal Cauley came into my sphere because of her Facebook page, Black Business Network of Western North Carolina. So she is there in the mountains in North Carolina. How are you today, Crystal?
Hi, I'm doing great today.
Great. Well, we're just going to have a conversation about all of the wonderful work that you do. And this is a way for us to look at all the different parts of our lives, and especially as we're community people who build community and create institutions. So let me just start by asking you where you're from, Crystal.
I am from Hendersonville, North Carolina.
And that's born and raised, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Now tell me a little bit more about Hendersonville, North Carolina, for people who may not know anything about Western North Carolina.
Yes, it's located in Henderson County. It's a small town, but it is growing rapidly. We have so many people moving in here every month, moving to the city. And so the feel of this town has definitely changed
Tell us a little bit about how it was when you were growing up, and that way people might understand what this change is about, because you're outside of Asheville. I know Southern folks, people want to know how close I am to Atlanta. So just to give them a feel, but then you can spend a little bit more time talking about what Hendersonville was like for you in your memory.
Of course, through my eyes as an African American woman, I'm going to see Hendersonville much different than other people.
Right.
Because I grew up in a small knit family, and then as I got older, probably in my late 30s, I began to have, I would say, friendships, and I was a part of circles that I had never been a part of, because that's just the way it is here. However, things have been changing within the last 3 years in the city. It's a beautiful city. I mean, you have your small town feel. That's how I grew up. I've had a lot of experiences that I do talk about, for as I feel it was racism. And so I use these experiences in my poetry, my spoken word poetry, in my creative writing that I do, and also just in my life in general now. So that's a little bit about my life growing up in Hendersonville. We're known as Apple Country, so it's Apple Kingdom here. A lot of the things, the stores and things like that we have now, of course, we didn't have when I was growing up. But there's a lot of developers that's here that have built homes and apartment homes, and it's changing the landscape, of course.
Because to give people a glimpse, because a lot of times, every episode, each one of us, no matter what state we're in, could talk about the fact that people don't expect Black people to be where we live in the region. But what kind of work did your family do? I believe that church is an important part of your community connection. What were some of the things that define your sense of community, even though it was maybe completely different from what a tourist might experience?
Looking back as an adult now, I had a very good life because of my parents, and for as like my mother, we live right beside a public library. So I was always reading. My mother was a writer. So she died at the age of 54. However, she lived her life in a way that I lived my life, a very like as a Black creative. So she was a writer. She loved her plants and just a beautiful person. My father, he's 69 years old. He's a truck driver. So he exposed me to a lot of things. Since he's a truck driver, he would bring things back home, talk about his travels. He can play many instruments, and that's what he enjoyed. So I had both sides. My mother being in her own right as a writer, and then my father being into music.
Well, that's a wonderful basis for a creative life. And I love the fact that you say a creative, because as I know you expand into so many different areas, because even with the Black Business Network of Western North Carolina, as I understand it, it's business, entrepreneurship and culture. Could you talk about some of the cultural things that you established as you grew this network? And how did the network even begin?
Well, the network began in 2016. And at that time, I had a very bad experience with my local chamber of commerce here. And what had happened was I began to sell African products out of my home, out of my apartment. And so that looked like selling dashikis, African soaps, jewelry, that type thing. So I was new to it, consider myself a new business owner, and I reached out to my local chamber to get some help. My calls were never returned, nor my emails. And so, like I said, it was a bad experience in 2016, or probably the end of 2015. It was a bad experience. So I said, well, I'm going to create my own network, my own chamber, so to speak.
Right.
I created a Black Business Network of Western North Carolina because I felt like I know if I went through the experience that I encountered, probably other people have too. And I got into the ears of the chamber. They of course said, well, the people that worked there in 2016, they don't work here anymore, that type thing. So that's how I created Black Business Network.
That's wonderful. You talk about your parents being very creative, and that also means that they thought outside of the box. But was there anything else, within your sphere? It wasn't necessarily school or anything like that. You were meeting a need. Is there anything else that led you to that? And I want to talk about the cultural thing because, like you said, you were doing something that they may not have thought define what Western North Carolina was, or things that they hadn't necessarily promoted before, if I'm understanding correctly.
For as influencers, I had, of course, other people, my aunts or in my family. I had a few Black teachers that, inspired me. And so, and here I am, 43 years old, and I still remember the positive things that these Black teachers, male and female, instilled in my life.
Right.
So as a collective, I would say that's how, all those parts, all those, the praise and the positive things that they had given to me, it all mixed well. And so here I am.
Well, I'm glad that you, as we talk, are starting to people this vision, because that's another thing too that we often don't have the opportunity to give the praise songs to the people that we think about later, that, like you said, it may have come later in your life that the effect of their words and encouragement brought forth fruit. Speaking of fruit, as I said before, we started to follow each other on Facebook with the Black Business Network of Western North Carolina and the Appalachian Artists Project, and back and forth was how, I first became familiar with you. But there was this internet debate that came up. Please tell us about that, because I think that's an important story to tell, of all the different stories that we could tell, because we could do 3 episodes on Crystal, but we're going to start with this one. Tell us a little bit about how that debate and your questioning someone's appropriate use of terms and, attacks on Black culture as a way to raise your profile in the community and give you some particular visibility that you may not have had before. Tell us a little bit about that, because that was something that I honed in as I got to know you on social media.
Well, what happened was, I would say I have a friend who was friends with, at that time, I would say, the executive director of the Apple Festival. And the Apple Festival is a big thing here in Western North Carolina. It's a multi-million-dollar maker. Of course, I wasn't friends with him on Facebook. However, he made a comment that he was disgruntled because he went to the post office on a Monday, I believe, and the post office was closed due to observing Juneteenth. And so his response was to get on Facebook, which was his decision, to say, basically, what is Juneteenth? When will, when can I celebrate the big fat white man's day? It was something along those lines. And so my response was to his post that was screenshot and sent to me. And this person, who was a white female, she asked me to respond to his post. And I said, of course. But what I think highlighted my involvement with this man, who was completely ignorant, was the fact that I said, if anyone is unsure about Juneteenth, or they would like to have more knowledge about Juneteenth, we can sit down and peacefully talk about it. And so
Right.
it was my response to this ignorant post that he made, which basically had, racial undertones, what people said. And those that have known him personally that reached out to me, those that have worked with him on boards that reached out to me, um, they said that he has always made very racial insensitive comments. So there really wasn't a big surprise. I think the reason why he was asked to step down was because, like you were saying before, this is a big deal here. And so they couldn't have this man who did represent, so to speak, the Apple Festival, who put a lot of the Apple Festival, the planning
Market.
and all that
Right.
together. He did for, I think, at least 23 years or so, 26 years. They couldn't have that be the face of the Apple Festival because, like I said, even a few minutes ago before that, the people are moving in here. Um, so it's a shift here. You have a lot of. I'll just be straight. You have a straight with you in the audience. You have a lot of white people that have biracial children,
Right.
right? And I think he has a biracial grandchild. I think he does. But either way, this is what your top person of the Apple Festival here thinks about Juneteenth. And so he just got caught.
And I wanted to just say, because I want to move us into a, a helicopter look at what this represents. Because as you
Mhm.
say, it's also what I saw was it brought this discussion
Mhm.
into public view
Mhm.
about the presence of diversity
Mhm.
historically in the region. Because every time
Mhm.
I talk about Western North Carolina, I would be
Mhm.
remiss to leave out the fact about the historic presence of a trio, and now it's blossomed into more than three, of peoples, indigenous people, the Eastern Band of the Cherokee, the Qualla
Mhm.
Boundary, Scotch Irish, and everything else from the European side, and African American, because there are people from the Caribbean, not
Mhm.
just African Americans in the region. And now we have, of course, the Latinx, Asian
Mhm.
American community. But even if you just talk about those three, were seen in a context of his behavior over time. So that's how Crystal Cauley, with other people, took this person down and away from their responsibility. I feel like this is representative of your work because, with the Black Business Network of Western North Carolina, you're also shining the light on economic and cultural development in the region. So
Mhm.
what are your goals other than just putting together a list of people? Because I want you to get a little bit deeper into telling us how important this organization, what it means to you, what it means to people in the community.
Well, it means a big deal to me to shine light on minority businesses. And it really means something special to me that business owners and entrepreneurs, they come to me, they feel good about posting their business info within the group, because within the group, Black Business Network of WNC, we have over 1,200 people, and most of
Right.
these people have stayed with me since 2016, and that is a big deal. And so I preach, um quality versus quantity. In some Black business networks of other cities, you may have 3, 4, or 15,000 people. I've mentioned 1,200, but I would rather have quality professionals and good business men and women in my group versus having 3 or 4,000 and the quality of the group isn't good. So it's more than just numbers to me. It's we're representing. I'm helping to represent great people. I'm really good at what I do with the networking.
Because
part
you
of.
do business coaching and other things. It's not just a listing
Mhm.
service.
Right. I do mentoring. I have a business partner that is all the way in Houston, Texas. So basically, together, we help rebrand businesses. And he does websites. And then I come in with my networking and my flyers and helping business owners and entrepreneurs get the word out and like I network the network.
Right.
So I'm constantly networking day and night, and I enjoy it. And so it's moving to, and if it was a ministry, it was my ministry at first, really. And now it's to the point to where I have to have, I'm gonna have to have membership fees and things like that for those that I'm working with. Like, so it could, because it's growing.
I think it's important for people to listen to see about that transition, because it has grown from a ministry, because very often that's what Black women do. Before, there was something called the help networks and the relief networks. We just did things. Before mutual aid, we just gave, we just donated our time. And now this is valuable work that people are paid for as consultants, coaches. So it's a natural progression for that to happen. And I'm really proud to see that happen over time with your work. And you do events, because like I said, this is not just someone selling a product, but beyond, because we're way beyond Juneteenth, but there are all these other events that you do in the community as part of developing a greater sense of community. Could you mention one of your favorites?
I love all of this. I'll tell you this. I love in December. I love to represent and do everything I can in my power for Kwanzaa. Okay, so this is when Kwanzaa begins in December. In January, I love everything I could do for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and having a day of service. Then I move to February next month, Black History Month. That's all me. That's all of me. And then I take a rest, and then you have Juneteenth.
Right.
So I mean, all four are equally important. And what I do is I even go to my local city government, and I ask for proclamations.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because that's also when we talk about things becoming ritual, but we make it official. We make it a part of the bureaucracy and the infrastructure of our towns.
Yes. And it's an ask that I did when I think it was for Kwanzaa. I reached out to other mayors, and I had a great response from the mayor of Brevard, in Asheville, the town of Fletcher, and Hendersonville. So one year I was able to get 4 proclamations for Kwanzaa.
Right.
You know, and some of these places never highlighted Kwanzaa in that way. And that's something anybody can do. You can reach out to your city mayor and say, look, let's make a proclamation for Kwanzaa or Juneteenth or Black History Month or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service.
Or it may even be something unique to your community in the name of someone, because I recently worked with a good friend of mine, the daughter of, I call her my spiritual mentor, and we created a Victoria Casey McDonald Day in Jackson County for someone who was beloved in the community as an educator, minister, writer, artist. So that I'm glad that we brought this into the conversation, because it's something that, we can share, that, like you said, anyone can do.
Yes, you can do this. And really, I tell people, go to your city council and let your voice be heard there. Go to the city council meetings, because it's important to be in the room, and it's also very important to be at that decision table.
Right. Last but not least, because like I said, we could go on, but I think this is an appropriate way to wrap things up. You're also a recent recipient of a Waymakers Fund grant. Tell the people what that is. and how that fits into the work that you do?
Well, I really love the fact that they highlight people that may never be highlighted, or in areas that's not typically reached. And so I love that's a part of their mission. And I learned more about Waymakers Collective after I was nominated.
And you were
And
nominated by someone I know.
well, I know his first name is William, and I don't want
William
to say
Isom. William Isom with Black in
yeah.
Appalachia.
But I met him. He was traveling, and he traveled to Hendersonville, and he wanted to know more about the history, and he had been, like yourself, following my pages, Black History Collective of Henderson County, North Carolina, and just watching the turn, like I said, the atmosphere has been moving here, and all the changes that has happened regarding preserving Black history, for the first time here. I met him, and he nominated me for this grant, and it's called the Radical Rest Grant. They highlight people in, I think, the Central Appalachian region that is out there in their communities doing positive things and making change. So it's a wonderful, from what I can see, it's a wonderful organization. And so I would definitely tell anybody to go to Waymakers Collective website. I think it's .org, and look up all the great things that's going on and what other people in other towns, small areas are doing.
Well, as I said at the very beginning, when we talk about all these different hats that we often wear, and we gain that legacy from grandfathers, grandmothers, other elders that we know and love, and we see how they manage, that we don't forget about our mental, spiritual, physical health, that we don't fall prey to the grind. The grind can turn you into dust. And that this particular grant allows people, funding to be able to step back for a minute and be able to replenish themselves so that they can do better work and go farther. So as we wrap up this conversation, what's next for Crystal Cauley after you get that nap, after you get that radical rest?
What's next is I am still up in the face of the councilmen and women at City Council because I have taken on a community that I love, that I grew up in, called Green Meadows Community, and it's a very underserved community. And so I am, making proposals for different things in that area. And so what's up next is I will have a bird sanctuary at Sullivan Park. So Sullivan Park it's right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, Green Meadows community. Bird watching has so many mental health benefits for our people of all ages, and it's a lot that I want to do with this bird sanctuary and with our youth, and especially with our seniors. My involvement with the community garden, and then how we can teach our children, especially like how food is grown and where it comes from, and the education behind that's in the Green Meadows community as well. So it's a lot of things that's just, I think God is pushing me in these directions to do these things. And that's what some people have told me, that God is definitely using me to be in these different areas.
Right. And you inspire so many people, because I think that's what's really very endearing about the way that you present yourself, even though we haven't physically met yet, is that you bring with you other people, even as you speak. Your demeanor is one that reaches out to the youth and the elders and everyone else in between. So, Crystal, the best is yet to come. I really am so grateful that you took some time out to share a little bit with us. Any closing thoughts that you have before we end our conversation about being Black in Appalachia, or even if you embrace the term Appalachian?
Well, I embrace being Black in Appalachia. I would just like to say I began my journey when I was 36 years old for a Black Business Network of Western North Carolina. And then when I was 39 years old, a few years later, to create a way to reach our youth with preserving Black history. And this reaching back into finding more of who I am, and anybody, and you can do the same thing. And I tell people a part of my story too, my journey, is that I was once married for almost 18 years. And so during that marriage, I sacrificed a lot, and I would put my things on the back burner. So I have some people saying now, well, you're over here, you're doing this, you're doing that, and I say, well, these are things I always wanted to do, but I sacrificed. I shut that part of myself down to do other things. And so now it's kind of like, I'm into my own world here. I'm doing things that I always wanted to do. So I think it's important that you find someone that can support your ideas and your business, your entrepreneurship. I mean, even if it's, I started out with selling Avon, and and I just needed a little bit of support, but I didn't receive it. It's important to have a partner or your husband, your wife support you. So my message is, and my testimony is, of course, put God first, and follow your passion, because when you do your passion, it's like you're not working.
Right.
I mean, you're doing a lot, but you feel you enjoy it. It's a big part of just enjoying the things that you're doing, and you don't feel like you're working hard at all when you follow your passion. And it is very important to have a supportive system around you. I had Agape World Outreach. That's the church that I still attend to this day. Well, we call it a temple. I had people in Agape World Outreach pour into me. It's important it's so true, have positive people around you that's going to support you, and then also you support them. They're supporting you, you support them, and I can tell you it will change your life.
Well, Crystal, you are literally your name. You are a gem and a light. And we're so happy to have had the conversation with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.